Welcome, friends, to the very first episode of the Nature Wanderer podcast. My name's Paul. I'll be your guide through our explorations, our wanderings through nature. Today, we're going to talk about saw-whet owl banding. Saw-whet owls are a small owl that are found in the United States. They actually got their name because people thought that their call, it's a repetitive, almost like a chirping noise. And a lot of people believed it sounded like someone sharpening a saw on a whetstone. And that's where the name saw-whet came from. Now, these little guys, they're smaller owls. They're not very hardy. They're not very used to cold. So once winter sets in, and this time of year in Western New York, where we're located, winter is starting to set in. It's getting colder. The days are getting shorter. The nights are getting longer. The saw-whet owls are headed south. They're migrating, as we call it. They're migrating towards the southern states in the United States. Many of them come from Canada or from northern New York State or Michigan, and they're migrating through our area headed south, where it's warmer and they can find food much easier. Smaller birds have a lot of problems with winter. They're just not made for the colder temperatures. It's too difficult for them to find food, so they head south. They migrate. We'll do an episode at some point about migration, but today I just want to talk about saw-whet owls and their migration. Now, the saw-whet owls, as they're migrating through, it's a good opportunity to do some research on them. And the type of research we do is what we call bird banding. Now, bird banding is where a bander, you have to be licensed to do bird banding. A bander will set up nets, and these nets are what we call mist nets. They're very fine, very thin, made of nylon usually, and they're so thin that they actually can't be seen easily by the birds. And the birds think they're flying along, and all of a sudden they run into this net that they didn't see, and they get caught in it. Now, it doesn't harm the bird at any time. The mist nets are harmless to them, but it does capture them so that they cannot be released out of the net. Now, once they are caught in the net, we will go out, we'll take the bird gently out of the net. I'm trained to do that so that it doesn't harm the bird. And we take the bird, put him in a small bag. This cloth bag allows them to breathe, but it also contains them. It makes it so that they can't see what's going around them, which also makes it more relaxed for them. It's one of the biggest things with bird banding is we're always trying to do things so that we don't stress out the bird. And one of the things is we make sure that we do things as quickly as possible. We don't want them to get stressed by being in the net too long, by being in the bag too long, by processing them too long. And I'll talk about processing in a minute here. So once we have them in the bag, we take them back to our station, and that's where we process them. By processing them, I mean we take them out of the bag, we take measurements on the bird, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we're actually in the field. We take measurements, we try to figure out age, sex, and then we put a metal band around their ankle. Now, each band has a distinctive number on it so that we can tell which bird is which. Then we release the bird back to the wild. So that's what bird banding is. Now, we are doing this at nighttime because that's when the owls are flying. The saw-whet owls are coming through this time of year. Some banders will band saw-whet owls in the springtime, but you find that we don't get as many owls flying through in the spring. It's harder to capture them. I mean, they're still flying through. It's just they're not as interested in our lures. We have this lure set up in the woods. It's basically a box that has a speaker system in it. It's got an iPod with the recording of a saw-whet owl on it, and it just plays in a loop over and over again. Once we're in the field, you'll hear it. We have speakers mounted up on the tree, and they lure the owls into the nets. So the owls fly into the nets, like I said, mist nets. They don't see them very easily, and they get caught in them. We take them out, and then we take them and process them at our station. So that is what we are going to do tonight. and we will head out into the field. Now we're out in the field, headed to the banding nets. Yeah, it's about 11 o'clock at night. Nice calm night, nice and quiet, star-filled skies, nice and clear. We're looking for calm nights to catch owls, and you probably hear that beeping noise in the background. You'll hear it louder as we get closer to the nets. That is actually the owl lure. So we're trying to lure in the whet owls. We have a sound system set up in the woods with 4 speakers on the tree, basically in each direction. The call is being broadcast. And our sound system is basically a box that has a lawnmower battery in it and an amplifier, and then we have an MP3 player with the call on it that just loops over and over and over again. We're about probably about 150 feet from the nets at the banding station. We don't want to be too close because then the owls can hear us. We don't want to spook them. We do net checks about every hour. And we have a whet owl in our nets. This is exciting. We do net checks about every hour so that we can get we don't want to go too soon because then we're in the woods with all the crunchy leaves and scaring all the owls away. If you go longer than an hour, like this guy here is caught in the net, I'll make sure I get a picture of him for the site so that you can see him later. But he's caught in the net right now. If we go longer than an hour, he could be stuck in there for a while, and that could injure him. I'm going to put the microphone down on the ground here so I can have both hands to get this little guy out. Looks like he's been spinning around a little bit. He's not in too bad. He's in the bottom part of the net. It looks like he went in and just started spinning, trying to get out, so he's a little bit wrapped up here. And that's why we're glove. He's trying to get my hand with his talons, and they're small, but they are very, very sharp. Okay, it looks like it's just the net. If he flew in pretty clean, around the wings and around his feet. Okay, we got one wing loose. And let's see, we got... Oh, thought I had it loose, wasn't loose. Now it's loose. Okay, let's see if we can get it off his other wing. There we go, that was easy. Now we'll get it off of his talons. Got him around, and I'm holding his neck. It's what we call the bander's grip. So it's really loose grip, but it's tight enough so he won't get away. Okay, he's out of the net. He's out of the net now, and we're going to put him in a bag. Get him in a bag here. We have these small bags, cloth bags that we put them in with a drawstring on the top. And when we put them on I gotta put the microphone down again while I put him in here. Okay, so he's in the bag. We tie off the top. This keeps him calm and contained while we take him back to the station so that we can get measurements and all. Okay, and that was just net one. Let's check the other nets. Like I said, a calm night, so that lure is just bringing them in. Okay, nothing in net two. Now our nets are set up in a rectangle. So we have two longer nets, and then we have two shorter nets. We do the rectangle with the lure, the call in the middle of the rectangle, so that they basically fly in towards the lure, no matter what direction they're coming from, or if they flew over the nets and then on their way out, whatever direction they're going out to, they will get caught in one of the four nets. And it looks like just the one for right now. Maybe next hour we'll get some more. And we're going to head back to the station now, and we'll do a little banding. So I'm going to sign out for right now just so that I can keep an eye. I actually stumbled in the woods the other night. Hey, it's dark out here. I'm wandering through the woods with just a headlamp on my head. And I ended up tripping on a stick that was, my grandson used to call them volcanoes, but it was a small tree trunk sticking out of the ground. I tripped on it and did a nosedive, scraped up the leg pretty good, so I like to concentrate on watching where I'm going. So, meet you in the banding lab. How about some fun facts about owls? Did you know there's 19 different types of owls in the United States and over 200 in the world? The largest owl in the world is the Blakiston fish owl with a wingspan over 6 feet wide. Wow, that's big. The smallest owl, tiny little guy, is an Alph owl, which is only about 6 inches tall, a little bit shorter than that. Yeah, not very big at all. Most owls are nocturnal, not all, but most are. Nocturnal means that they hunt at nighttime, they sleep most of the day. Now, because of them being nocturnal and trying to find food at nighttime, remember these are in a family of birds we call the raptors or birds of prey. They eat other animals. So they're meat eaters. So they need to find their food in the dark, find the mice, find the rats, find whatever they're after in the dark. So they need special tools to do that. In order for them to hunt at night, they need excellent eyesight. The eyes are located in the front of the head so that they can actually see distance better. They can see three-dimensional, so they can figure out how far away their food is when they spot it. Now, their eyes also are made different than most animal eyes. You can't actually call an owl's eyes eyeballs because they're not ball-shaped. They're not round. They're actually cone-shaped. They get larger as they go back into the head. The reason that they need to be large is to help them see in the dark, and it also contains more rods than cones. Now, if you're not familiar with that, eyes contain rods and cones. Rods see more black and white, but they also see dim light much better, whereas cones, they see brighter light, and they also see colors better. So when you're out at nighttime looking up in the sky at the stars and you see a really dim light or dim star, and when you start looking at it, it disappears. That's because we're picking it up on the outside of our eye because their edge of our eye actually has more rods in it than cones. And that's what an owl does. They have more cones in their eyes so that they can see in the dim light much better. Now, because the eyes are cone-shaped instead of round, they are stuck in the head in one position. They're always looking straight forward. An owl cannot turn their eyes from side to side like most animals can, like we can. So we can look at something out of the corner of our eye. An owl cannot. That's because they want to see that distance. Now, because of that, they need to see what's going on behind them by turning their head. Now, I was told when I was younger an owl could turn their head all the way around. Not true. No, an owl can only turn their head in about 270 degrees in either direction. So that's about 3/4 of the way around. Either way. Now, we can't do that because, well, we only have 7 vertebrae, 7 bones in our neck. An owl has 14 vertebrae in their neck. And especially designed vertebrae so that they don't crush any of the important things like the esophagus, and it doesn't crush those in the neck. So an owl is specially designed to sit real still, and they can turn their head 3/4 of the way around. Now, an owl's hearing is excellent as well. If you look at an owl's face, you'll notice it almost looks flat. The reason for that is because it acts like a funnel. The feathers draw the sounds back to the ears. So the entire face is like one big ear funnel, drawing that sound in. Now, the ears on the head are not at the same height like on most animals. On an owl, one ear is a little bit lower than the other. That's so that they can do a thing we call triangulation. They form a triangle with their hearing, and they pinpoint exactly where a sound is coming from. So not approximately where it's coming from, but exactly. Owls have been known to come flying down in winter climates, pierce their talons through the snow, and come up with dinner. Without ever seeing that animal under the snow, they heard exactly where it was, and they pierced their talons through and grabbed it. So what are talons? Well, this is a bird of prey. They have to hunt for their food. So 2 main characteristics that all birds of prey have. Number 1 are talons. Talons are like claws, except the talons are more of an extension of the bone, whereas claws are kind of like a fingernail. These bones sticking out of the toes, very sharp, very strong. Very strong. As a matter of fact, the great horned owl, one of the larger owls in the United States, they actually can exert so much force with their talons that they can crush bone. They actually exert about 300 pounds per square inch of force in those talons. So all of this allows an owl to hunt at nighttime. And when they're hunting, they have to sneak up on their prey. They're not flying down really quick before the animal gets away. What they're doing is they're flying down slowly and quietly so that they can sneak up on that animal so it doesn't know they're coming. And the way they do that is they fly silently. Everything about an owl is designed for silent flight. Their wings are much larger compared to their body size than most birds, so that they can glide more. They don't have to beat their wings as hard and fast. And even if they did, you probably wouldn't hear them because the design of the feathers on the edge of the wing are made to just float through the wind. So they don't cut sharply into the wind, making a lot of noise like a lot of birds do. Instead, they can flap their wings and the feathers just kind of buffer through the wind to be silent. Also, a lot of owls, they just glide through the air after their prey. So once they get that speed up, which they don't go very fast, remember, they're not about catching it quickly, they're about sneaking up on it. But once they get the speed up, they can just glide after that animal. Their feet, if you look at their legs, all the way down to the feet, owls have feathers going all the way down to the toes. The reason for that, once again, it helps buffer the wind so that they can fly silently. Now, the saw-whet owl can travel long distances. They've actually been known to fly 70 miles at a time when they're flying over water. Obviously, there's no place to land, so they need to be able to travel long distances across the water during migration. a group of owls called a parliament. Hope you enjoyed some of these fun facts about owls. Let's get back to the owl banding. Okay, so we just got in from the field. We're in what we call our banding station. Essentially, it's just a little table we have set up in our garage, stay a little bit warm while we're getting all the information on the owl. We got the owl out of the net, put him into a bag. The bag is essentially to keep the owl calm. You have to think about it as, what would you do if someone came, some big, huge, 20-foot animal, creature, came in to your house, ripped you out of your house, and you were stuck. You couldn't get away, so he just took you and started, playing with you, getting measurements and putting this metal thing around your ankle. Can you imagine how stressful that is? I mean, I'd be scared to death. Well, that's how the owls feel, so we have to take that into consideration. Everything we do is to try to reduce stress, try to be as quick and easy on the bird as possible, although they're not always easy on us. I've got quite a few scars on my hands from talons, and these guys, they can be rough. So we put them in the bag at the net, and we carried them back to the station that way. It keeps them contained. It's nice and dark in there, so it keeps them calmer. And then as soon as we get back to the station, we process them as quickly as possible. So I've got these birds in the bags. I'm going to take one of them out. We have the band all ready, sitting here so that we can grab it right away and get it on the bird quickly. Each band has a separate number on it. Those numbers are in sequential order, so we can make sure we're not missing a band. The numbers get sent off to the bird banding lab. There's a place, government run, that keeps all this information, and they distribute it to anyone who's doing scientific research that would like to get this information. So all of our numbers, all of our information goes off to the bird banding lab. So let's get this bird processed so we can get him out of here right away. So I'm going to take the bird out of the bag. I'm wearing a glove so that he doesn't hurt my hands while I'm doing this. They usually will try to grab you with their talons. The talons are very sharp, especially on these little guys. So not a lot of strength, but they do hurt. I'm going to read the band. First thing I do is I put the band on the ankle of the bird. I made that a habit because you don't want to get all the information and then forget to put the band on and you release it, and it's pretty much useless. So first thing I do is I grab the band. Got the bird in my hand. We do what's called the bander's grip. The neck is between two of my fingers. It's loose enough where it's not harming the bird at all, but it's tight enough where the bird can't get away. And holding it in this manner, I can turn the bird around easily so I can get these measurements. But I'm holding the bird. I've got my banding pliers. They have a little device on them, so when I open it up, it opens up the band. Now I put the band into the other end. There's different size slots. Okay, then I have to put it over the leg of the bird. I'm going to crimp down on it with the pliers, not hurting the bird again. They're especially sized for this bird. Now it's crimped around the leg of the bird. I spin it to make sure it's loose enough, it's not going to get caught. Also, because they have so many feathers on their legs, I always like to spin it around a couple of times to make sure the feathers aren't caught in the crimp. And this one's moving nice and smooth. It's moving easily, so it's a good band. Nice closed end. You don't want a gap there because it could get caught on a tree branch or something. So yeah, this band looks good. Now we're going to get measurements. We don't do a lot of measurements with the owls. When we do bird banding, regular summer banding or winter banding, and we'll do an episode on that at some point, we take a lot more measurements, a lot more data. But here we mainly want to get things like the wing. So that's the first thing I take. I have a special ruler with a little notch on the end. The elbow of the bird goes up into the notch right against it. I put my thumb under the wing so that it's loose enough. We want a natural measurement. We don't want to push it down, which makes it longer. So we have a nice loose curve on the bird's wing, and we lower it slowly. And on this one, the wing is 142. My scribe is going to mark that on the sheet. My wife does my scribing for me. Thank you, Bev, for doing this. Sometimes I've got a friend who comes over and helps me out. He was a little busy tonight, so he wasn't able to come, but he'll scribe, and sometimes he bands too. So 142 on the wing. Next thing I am going to do is I am going to look at the fat. And what I do is I blow under the neck. Okay, fat. We're looking at right in the neck area, how full it is, how much the indentation there goes in, how much pink is there or white, yellow. We're looking for fat content. This bird here has a fat of 3. Most of the saw weights we get in are 3 or 4s. Some 2s, I should say, 2 or 3. Sometimes we get a 4 where it's really full and they've been eating a lot. So fat's a 3. Next thing we do is we are going to check out the wing. We have a black light here, and opening up the wing of the bird. We opened up the wing, the underside of it, and we shined the black light on it. And in the Patreon show notes, we do have some pictures of what this looks like, but you have different colors. The wing underneath, the younger feathers actually glowing like a bright red. And on this one here, they're all glowing bright red. This is a first-year bird. This is a hatch year, as we call it. So it's an HY, and my scribe's writing that down on the paper. Now we're going to take all this information, and we're going to look at... I've got a chart here. I got to find my chart. There it is. Okay, we've got a chart here, and it gives us wing measurements, and it gives us weight. We're going to put the bird back in the bag. We're going to put him on the scale to get a weight. And the weight on this bird is a 92. It's 92 grams. And I'm going back to my charts. Okay, so we've got the wing there, which was 142. And the mass. Okay, so this actually falls right into a female. Females are generally larger than the males, so that's how this helps us to determine whether it's a male or female. So we went to our chart, looked at that. I also have on my notebook here in my pad, I've got pictures of different wings under a black light so that it helps us to determine, but I've been doing it enough. I can pretty much tell a hatch year, a second year bird. Once we get into third and fourth year, those I always have to refresh my memory because we don't get a lot of them. I go to my chart. Okay, so we've got fat as a 3. It's a hatch year bird. The sex is female, wing 142, weight was 92 grams. Put the date in, the time of capture, and the net that it was caught in. We have 4 nets out there, so we keep track of which net this one came into. It's not real important with saw wet banding, but it's a good habit to get into, because when we do regular daytime banding during the spring, we want to know which area, what habitat it came from, so we keep track of the nets. So it's just a habit that I have gotten into where I keep track of what net the bird came out of, even with saw wet banding. So this guy's ready to go. We're going to just take him outside and we'll release him. So that's about it for processing a bird. That took a little bit longer than normal because I was explaining the whole process. Normally, it only takes about a minute and a half to process a bird, between a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And then we get him right back outside where he'll fly off. Now, this guy, like most of them, will probably just sit on my glove for a minute when I take him outside, and then he'll finally fly off. So, and that's about all we do. It looks like we've come to the end of this episode for today. If you enjoyed wandering through nature with me, please help me out by subscribing to the podcast. You can write a review, download the episodes. Also, be sure to let your friends know about the podcast and how they too can wander through nature along with us. If you have any nature questions or ideas for future episodes, feel free to drop me a message on my Instagram page, which is found at The Nature Wanderer. There's an underscore between each word, or my website at naturewanderer.org. You can also support the podcast by joining my Patreon, which will also give you extras, including videos, bonus podcasts, pictures, and much more. Have a great week and keep exploring nature.